Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday morning. Sorry, it took me a second there. It is Tuesday morning. It is wonderful to be with you again, whether you are able to be on live or you are catching the replay. I am going to talk today about habits, and we already covered part one yesterday where I gave you 3 nuggets, and I'll go over those kind of quickly. But then today we're going to jump into the last 2 golden nuggets when it comes to initiating new habits, good habits, replacing good habits with bad habits, from a fantastic book by Wendy. I'll give you her last name in just a second. And I think the title of the book is Good Habits and Bad Habits. So give me 2 check-ins and I will be good to go. I'm still having a check-in, check-up with Insta, but it's not quite working for me. They wanted me to check all of the crosswalks, right? And so I have to do an interpretation. Actually, there are no crosswalks. That's a runway, Kevin. Okay, so all right. Well, I guess that's going to have to wait for a few more. It's giving me a code. I have a code. Don't you love it when you actually have your phone on you when they're giving you a code? But I think we're good. I think we're in. We are. Boom. And so let me pop over here, pop this on here, and we are now good to go on the OWL Instagrams. So, hey, if you're watching, do me a favor, say hey, tell me where you're watching from, and let me know if you have any questions, because we're going to take a little bit of time at the end for some questions. So want to do that for sure, Let me prop this up a little bit. My stand is, I think, at the office. So this will have to do. At the fella says, how you, Janet? How you, Meemaw? How are you? Easter Okino, I think. Forgive me if I've mispronounced your name. Let me pop over here. All right, we're good to go. So we want to talk today about habits, part 2, and want to just give you a quick recap over where we went yesterday morning at your check-in with Kevin at 7. And so first thought is we talked about, hey, in order to start a new habit, you have to identify what habits you want to build, right? You have to decide what it is you want to build, and then you have to decide on the person that you want to become, right? Who do you need to become? What needs to change in you? But before we get there, it's like, what does the person who's going to pull off these new habits need to look like, right? And then we talked about, underneath deciding what habits you want to install, what do you need to look like to pull that off? Number 2, list all the habits that you're going to practice to get you there, right? Number 3, we talked about being honest about what needs to change, right? Not just the habits that you need to practice in order to get you to where you want to get to, but what needs to change in you right now so that you can get rid of the friction. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but to get rid of the drag to help you ultimately get to where you want to go. All right, so the first thought was decide what habits you want to create. Second major thought was to reduce friction, right? Friction. This feels good when it's cold, right? But if you are simply trying to pass and get in a direction, you don't want friction, right? So we want to remove the friction so that we will be able to head in the direction that we want to go in. And so the first thought underneath remove the friction, the first thought is examine your space, right? Examine your space was the first thought. And so have a look at the places and the spaces that are around you to see what might need to change, what might need to be added, what might need to be subtracted to help you reduce the friction so you've got less hindrances, less opposition to you getting in to practice to live the habit that you want to live, right? So first was examine the space. Second is examine your circle, right? So examining your circle has to do with your the people in your life, right? Or the different circles in your life. Is there anyone in those circles that may also need to be added or be subtracted or minimized? Daly, did you just tell me to take somebody out? No, I didn't tell you to take anybody out. What I encouraged you to do is just examine the circles. You want to start new habits in your life as life transitions, out of a pandemic. It will be maybe not as fast as any of us would have liked. Habits sometimes are that way too. So we don't just want to examine our spaces. We want to examine our circles. The people in your life cheering you on, are they helping you get momentum and move in the direction that you want to move in? And then the third thought, right, underneath reducing the friction, the third thought is to reduce the friction as much as possible. Okay, you don't need an excuse not to do something that's difficult, right? The habits generally are difficult enough, and so we want to, as much as possible, remove anything that is slowing us down, right? And so I talked to you yesterday briefly about when I ran a marathon, and one of them, and when I did that, there was a massive difference when I put my running shoes and my gear beside the bed, because there was a big difference between when I took the 10 feet to where my clothes were, as opposed to just getting out of bed and throwing them on me, right? Massive difference. And so that helped to reduce the friction. That helped my head not have to make a decision, right? And that's what we're trying to do with habits. We're trying to make them automatic, right? You don't even have to decide. It's part of our muscle memory. It's part of our practice. It's part of how we do life. All right. So step number 3 was rinse and repeat, right? Rinse and repeat. And so in that idea, in the days that you don't want to do it, that it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel like, yay, let me do my new habit today or whatever. We want to not allow the feeling, not allow the emotion, not allow the pain in your head that I have right now dictate, right? We want to do it anyway. We want to do it tired. We want to do it frustrated. We want to just put one step in front of the next. Over the years, I have listened, asked, interviewed a lot of different leaders, and some of them that were really, really successful. And sometimes you look at people and you're like, how did you get where you are? And you'd scratch your head. The answer, more often than not, how'd you get to it? I just kept showing up, they said. I just kept showing up, right? I just kept rinsing and repeating, right? I just kept showing up. So rinse and repeat, all right? And so we said, listen, in order to do that, you need to know yourself to grow yourself, right? Know yourself to grow yourself. You know whether you're a morning person or a night owl, and so depending on which you are, take that into account when you're applying or putting into practice your new habit. Second thing we talked about, just persistence pays, just pushing through, and there's a balance there, right? So the third thought underneath point number 3 is, listen, cut yourself some slack, right? Cut yourself some slack. So we talked about the phenomenon of slipping, and we said, hey, a slip is simply just a, here's what a slip is. A slip is a short lapse in progress, right? And they happen, yeah? They happen. So allow for it. Don't be so hard on yourself when you're trying to create a new habit. Okay, so we've got 2 more for us today, right? And the next thought really is key because our brains are wired. Let me show you, okay? Our brains coming out of the womb, right, are wired to avoid pain, right? To avoid pain, real or imagined, okay? Avoid pain, real or imagined. To seek pleasure. Seek pleasure, right? Avoid pain, seek pleasure, and use as little energy as possible, right? Use as little energy as possible. And so the most successful people on the planet, push back against those 3. They understand that to get to where they want to get to, they will need to have a little bit of pain to minimize their seeking for pleasure and to manage their energy. Actually, I just read yesterday, it's more important to manage your energy than it is to manage your time. More important to manage your energy than it is to manage your time, because you only got so much of both, but how you show up in the time that you do have makes a massive difference. Okay, so number 4, reward yourself for a job well done, or at least well tried, okay? So, numero 4, well, yes, reward, okay? Reward. Actually, let me pop out of here and pop in over here and add this here, reward. All right, reward. Reward yourself for a job well done or a job well tried, right? Sheer willpower on its own will only work for a while. And the lie is, you don't know my willpower, Davey. No, I don't know your willpower. But here's what I do know. I do know that it has a short shelf life, even if you are as stubborn as all get out. There is a reason why races have finish lines and medals and trophies, right? We need rewards to keep going and doing the tough stuff, right? So make sure that you bake in rewards when you are starting a new habit. Your brain is wired for reward. And so they trick our brains into continuing to persevere and answer the question, what's in it for me, right? And so when you tie a reward to a completion, to even just a short-term completion, it releases a dopamine chemical in your brain, and it keeps you coming back for more. Reward. Powerful. Really, 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 really powerful, right? So when you think about rewards, think big but not too big. Think big but not too big when you think about rewards, okay? So first of all is reward for number 4, and we want you to think big but not too big. All right, so make sure that the reward is in line with the, make sure that the reward is in line with the challenge, or with the habit, right? It needs to be bigger than normal, but not too big that it seems like out of reach or unattainable, right? You know, a new dress, when you drop a dress size, is pretty motivational, I would imagine. Not that I know from the dresses that I wear on Friday nights, right? A new car for, you know, dropping a waist size for the lads or a dress size for the girls. That seems a little excessive. So we want to tie the reward to the habit so it's at the top of your mind, right? Because really it's answering why. Why am I doing this, right? Here's part of the reward. There's a bigger reward maybe character-wise. There's a bigger reward there's different experiences, intrinsic and external, that you are going to experience. But what we want to do is we want to tie the reward and make it answer the question again, why, right? When you lose your why, it's so much easier to lose your way. And so we don't want you to lose your why. So we make sure reward is part of it, and that it's big, but it's not too big, all right? Make it achievable. Make it achievable. All right, achievable. All right, what are we talking about when we're talking about making it achievable? Going back to the dress, right, for dropping a few sizes. That might be too long between the goal and the result. And so when you drop one size, when you lose 1 inch or whatever for the lads from your waist or whatever, then you want to string together the shortest amount of success and then reward it. So you want to get small wins is how it's described oftentimes, right? Small wins is what we want to get. And then the third thought is just test what works best, right? Sometimes in theory, what we think is going to work doesn't actually work well at all, right? So test what works best. What you might think seems worthwhile might actually not be all that motivating when it comes to experiencing it, right? And so change it. Find something that does work, that feels good when you successfully complete your habit, all right? And then numero 5 is you can multiply your success by partnering with others. So multiply by partnering with others. Go forth and multiply. That is not the type of multiplication we're talking about. Now let's say this. Let's clarify. Multiply success. Multiply success by partnering with others. All right. So it's just easier to go to the gym when someone else is waiting for you or picking you up, right? Now, right now the gyms are closed, but they're going to be opening up pretty soon, right? It's easier to learn a language or to play an instrument when you're practicing with somebody else. So multiply your success by partnering with others. Your good habit is likely to benefit somebody else, so invite them along on the journey if they'll come with you, right? So your first step to pulling this off is to find a buddy. What did you say? I said find a buddy. Find a buddy. B-U-D-D-Y, right? Think about the people that are in your circle who might want to develop a habit that you've identified. Ask them to join you, and they may even have a context or a reward that makes your life easier, right? So iron sharpens iron, and so do buddies, right? They help us succeed faster. They help us keep our motivation and momentum up because there's a layer of accountability built in there. Hugely important, very seldom experienced in our day. And so find a buddy. Number 2 is what I just spoke about. Number 2 is to stay accountable. Stay accountable, all right? Number 2 is stay accountable. Lean on each other. That helps for accountability, right? Neither of you wants to let the other down. And this can work to keep you going when the going gets tough. And it often gets tough, right? So push each other hard enough to ensure that you stay on track. Encourage one another, champion one another, right? And then when you are looking to start something new, the third thought I would just say to you, especially in the arena of habits, that's going to take some investment, it's going to take some time, is I would say avoid negativity. Avoid negativity, right? Avoid negativity, right? Whenever you try to change for the better, somebody somewhere ain't gonna like it. And so, as best you can, right, you want to avoid these kinds of people where possible. And the habit that you're trying to create is ultimately going to make your life better, maybe make you a better person. And if that's true, then keep that in mind when you hear the negativity and don't let it take you down, right? Don't let it take you down. And sometimes it's even people in your own family. Sometimes it may be people in your own family. Sometimes it's the last person that you think would be critical or negative or discouraging, and so that can be pretty painful, right? And so what I would also just kind of encourage you there is, before you even get to any negativity, make sure that the people in your inner circle, they're kind of on board with this new habit that you want to start, right? Otherwise, you're the only one, and maybe you are the only one who wants to do this, who wants to pull it off, and you've got resistance around you. And so that's about, in some respects, reducing friction as well. All right, so recap. Numero uno, okay? Numero uno is to, let me just make sure I have this open here. Okay. What habits do you want to build, right? That's the first thought. Make that decision. Who do you need to become? I want to make sure that I'm getting this in, right? What's the type of person that you need to become, or what do you need to put in place to get to where you want to get to when it comes to creating the habit that you want to create? Who do you need to become? What habits that you need to practice actually in order to start the habits that you want to start? And then I would rate them in importance, right? And then number 3, be honest about what needs to change. Be honest about what needs to change. So this is number 1 when it comes to creating a new habit. What habits do you want to create? Get clarity on that. Write that down. All right. A lot of people don't even do that. It stays in their heads. Okay. Thoughts disentangle themselves when moved through the lips to the fingertips. Okay. So number 2, reduce friction. Right. How do I reduce friction? You reduce friction this way. Examine your space. Examine your circle. And again, take anything away that will slow you down from accomplishing what you're trying to accomplish. All right. Number 3, rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. But some thoughts about rinsing and repeating are: know yourself to grow yourself. Right. You know, if you're a morning person and a night person, we Irish like our sleep. But in America, in the Americas, a lot of you are early risers. And so when my bride gets up for work in the morning at 5:30, Muggins is up with her to make her coffee and to send her off for the day, right? And then I come in here and get ready for this, right? So that was a habit that was already in place, and so it made this easier to pull off, right? And so know yourself to grow yourself, right? I could have said, let's do this at 4 a.m. Forget you would have said, right? Know yourself to grow yourself. Persistence pays. Persistence pays. I don't know what you're trying to change. I don't know what you're trying to add. But I want to just say the most successful people that I've come across, either in reading or in interviews, have oftentimes said, man, look, I just was in the right place at the right time. I just kept showing up. And then cut yourself some slack. Give yourself a little bit of grace, will you? Yeah. And then we talked about, well, this was like a freebie, right? Slips are short lapses in progress. That's all a slip is, a short lapse in progress. And then this morning we talked about make sure you bake in reward, right? Think big but not too big. Make sure that it's achievable and attainable, and test it. You know, if it doesn't float your boat, then let it go, right? And then how do you multiply your success? By partnering with somebody else. If possible, by partnering with somebody else. Find a buddy, stay accountable, and avoid negativity where possible. So let me ask you a simple question. Which, I should say, of those 5 areas do you struggle with the most when it comes to changing habits, right? And a lot of us have maybe allowed some rough habits to creep in during shelter in place and staying home to break the back of this pandemic and slow it down, and so that our hospital systems would not be overrun. In now transitioning back in and looking to maybe create new habits, break bad ones, how do we do that, right? So make a decision. What is it that you want to try to pull off? And as well, how do you reduce the friction, right? What can you do to make that easier, right? So this is about removing the difficulty, right? And getting easy wins. And when you do that, make sure that you rinse and repeat, right? And then that you bake in reward, and that you include somebody else where possible. And that could be a virtual person, or it could be a person in in living color, right in front of you, right? It's wonderful to start to see some people again out and about as we begin to transition. So that is what I have for you. Let me pop over here to the Facebooks and let me see if there has anything come in yet. Let me ask you this question. The question is, well, how do I not have that show like so? I guess like right there. The question is, which or where do you get tripped up, right? Make sure you can PM me, direct message me, or make a comment in here. Hey, if this has been valuable or helpful to you, then go ahead and share it with others. If you're catching the replay, let me know. And if you have any questions that I can be of support and help with, that would be awesome. We have a academy called the Live, Love, Lead Academy. It helps people live in the fullness in which Jesus came to give to us, fullness of life, right? It helps people love deeper than ever before, and it helps you lead from your most authentic self. And that happens 3 times a month on Wednesdays from 12 to 1, or right around 1, a little before, a little after. And where we pour in, where we row in the same direction, and where on the first Wednesday of the month, we talk about what it looks like to live fully and coach around that and answer any questions that surface around that. Second Wednesday of the month, we talk about what does it look like to love deeply, and again, answering any questions that you may have on that to help you get further faster. And then the third Wednesday of the month, we talk about what does it look like to lead authentically, and then we give you the fourth Wednesday usually off, and then when we have fifth Wednesdays, sometimes we throw in a bonus, etc. So if you have any interest in that, let me know, and we'll get some of that information to you. But we will be here until the end of the week. Has been our commitment to you as we transition through COVID, just to try to pour in and be of help, of support. If there is a better time that this might be at, then maybe you could message me or pop that in and say, Leprechaun, yes, there's a better time. Anytime later. But give me some suggestions or message me on that if that would be helpful too. For now, I will say cheerio. God love you. God bless you. May His favor be felt by you today. And in the meantime, may you live free and live well. We'll talk to you soon. See you in the morning. Bye.